Hello, Debbie. How are you?
Good.
Excellent. Thanks for persisting. Really appreciate it. As I say, It's been a bit of a technology battle with that bloody platform, so we will get there. Hey, look, it's awesome to talk to you. I'm recording now. Look, we've obviously done quite a bit of coverage of what's going on with the health industry or the health situation in New Zealand at the moment across all hospitals, etc., with a specific focus on mandated staff or mandated for the vaccine staff. And covering a lot of the nurses side of things, as well as all the carers, everything else that's involved in that. We saw you on the project, which was an interesting watch. We did our own little bit and dissected a bit of that. But look, we're keen to learn a bit about what you guys are all about, who you're representing and all of that stuff. So over to you, Debbie. What is Nurses for Freedom? Why have we formed?
So essentially, Lucas, thanks for having us on your podcast today.
Awesome.
Nurses for Freedom really started way back, even before the mandates came in, because we're a really cool bunch of nurses, and we do like to rescue each other and to help each other out. So
Yes.
Early on in the piece, myself and my husband were supporting other nurses who were deciding what they were going to do about the mandates and the vaccines. And we had groups meeting in our house, and we were reaching out across the internet. But it formally came together about a month ago, just over a month ago.
Yeah.
And basically the premise is that nurses we've kind of sat back, we've perhaps joined other organisations, but we've sat back thinking that this is going to end,
Yes.
that there is an end in sight, or thinking that somebody's going to rescue us, and clearly that's not the case.
Yeah.
So it was really out of a sense of frustration, and that particular week, hearing some terrible, terrible stories about what's happening to my colleagues,
Yes.
that I just thought, right, if nobody else is going to do it, I'm going to have to do it. So within a day, we had 30. Within 4 weeks, we've got 730 people
Yes.
signed up. We decided to include carers because they're a very forgotten group and nobody's managing them and helping them.
Sure.
But essentially our group is first and foremost to support other nurses that are going through the same hurt,
Yes.
the same anguish, the same lack of closure around all this.
Yeah.
So that's our first remit, is to support each other. And we're doing that via various Telegram channels and meeting. And we've got regional coordinators in lots of the big centres.
I see.
So that's the first thing we're going to do. We're going to help bring some closure and some healing into the narrative.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of got a little bit more, dare I say, political, that we are asking for an end to the mandates.
Yep.
Simply because our health system's in crisis. There's a 4,000 nurse deficit even before the mandates are put out there.
Yes.
And our nurses, they're healthy, they're ready, they're willing to go back into work. So that's kind of part two of our objectives, really, is end the mandates and let us get back to work.
Yeah, absolutely, and admirable on both fronts, to be fair. There's lots of questions out there. There's a lot of support for you guys and gals, from what I've done in terms of reporting and talking to people out on the street, etc. So, yeah, really, really cool that you've got together and actually done that. How was it going on the project? Obviously, they had certain comments afterwards, etc., which we covered. We weren't too stoked about from our perspective, but how was that experience?
To be honest and truthful, Lucas, I haven't listened to the after interview segment because I know what kind of vitriol tends to come from these kind of interviews, and I'm not interested.
Yeah.
I want to hear from scientists and doctors and nurses who have got a scientific background and who understand what's actually happening here. I'm not interested in what self-made media stars have got to say about the subject, because it doesn't have any bearing on my opinion. Yeah. So I haven't listened. I am aware of some of the comments that's been in the papers and the talkback radio and things, but at least myself is being hated for something that's worthwhile. It's a cause to hang your hat on. It's a cause to die on, because this is serious. This is big. This is global. Yeah. So I'm not sorry that I did the interview. Mm-hmm. It was kind of dropped on me at the last minute. It was a weird thing that happened, but it's done. And even the fact that we've got 57% public support, and I suspect that number is actually higher because the people they would normally contact would be people that are probably pro-vaccine. So I suspect it's a lot higher than 57%. So I'm happy with that, and that was my takeaway live on air, or to the viewer who'd appeared live.
Yes.
You know, that we have got public support behind us.
Yeah,
and then, of course, you know, on the back of it, we've now got politician support behind us.
Right.
You know, all the main parties want the mandates dropped. It is just Labour that's dragging their feet.
Yeah.
For whatever reasons that might be. But we're really hopeful. We are talking to them, and we're really hopeful that common sense will prevail, as it has done with these.
Absolutely. And look, you came across really well. I'll just say that, you know, for your part, you know, I don't know how much editing, etc. was involved. You did come across really well. Clear, concise, and stating the point. So we did report a few days ago, Andrew Little's, just while you're talking about, you're really hoping they're going to come see some sense. We did report on Andrew Little's comments the other day, around, he was saying that under review. So that's hopefully that's, you know, just political speak for they'll be dropped shortly. So fingers crossed on that for sure. So what are the I mean, how's it been going since it's been formed, you know, like in terms of the reception that you're getting? Obviously you've had these media bits and pieces, but you know, feet on the ground out there, what are you hearing?
Obviously, the nation's divided, clearly. Yes. We know that.
Yeah.
But generally, I think I probably had one email for every 20, you know, one email against what we're standing for. But generally, the mood from the public is really, really supportive. The nurses, I can't tell you, you know, even today I've just been reading a story that somebody's put up on the site, and it's a story of how a relative was treated, and it brings tears to my eyes.
Yes.
And this from day one. The personal injury stories from the nurses, the nurses that are having to have the booster because they risk losing their mortgages, their jobs, their families in some case.
Yeah. It's
absolutely horrendous, and nobody ever should be put in a situation like this because of a drug. Yes. And this is what this is basically about. So, you know, from that perspective, what we're doing is so essential, because we're offering a service to these nurses that they can just share in a safe space about what's happening for them, and suddenly they're surrounded by 20 other nurses that understand where they're coming from, that understand the hurt and the anguish around having to choose a vaccine or a mortgage. And there's no words, there's no amount of money could ever replicate what we're doing here. So it's absolutely essential, and I do think the public get that, because, you know, despite the rhetoric from the project team, most people would want to be treated by a nurse. I don't think they'd worry if they're vaccinated or not.
Correct.
Yesterday I was unfortunately at an accident where somebody had been knocked off a bike, and I was the only clinician there.
Right.
It never entered my head to say, hey, I'm an unvaccinated nurse, can I check you out for this injury?
Of course not.
You know, that's what it would need, and they'd have to wear a band of some kind to say they don't want to be treated as unvaccinated. I just got in there and I did what my training and my instinct told me, and, you know, managed the accident scene and kept everything safe and brought it through to a really good conclusion. Now, is that really what the project team want? Is for us to stand back and watch people die in shopping centres or, you know, in the home or by the side of the road? I think not.
No.
I think when it comes down to it, that common sense will prevail, and we will step into what is rightfully our inheritance, and that is to care for our patients, to care for people in need, because that's what nurses do.
Yeah, 100%. And look, it's really awesome to hear the way you've described Nurses for Freedom, in so much as the first goal was to provide a place of community support for these nurses, the like-minded people that have gone through the same thing. Because, you know, if you were one of the many people that just wandered along and got the vaccine and, you know, were no issues with it whatsoever, you would have no inkling or understanding at all about what people that are you know, dealing with when it comes to no jab, no job mandates. It's just an awful place to be. So really, you are doing really, really positive, healthy, good work. So So we really do appreciate it. Now, look, you've mentioned, Debbie, 730-ish members that you're representing, or people that you're representing. Is that number likely, or let me phrase that correctly, is that number got the potential to increase if the mandate continued and regular 6-monthly boosters were required, etc.?
Absolutely. I'm just on our site now. We've actually got more than that now. If somebody could quickly add it up. We've got 93 on one site, which is our alert only site.
Yep.
The people that don't want to get all the chat, and we've got 654 on the other side.
Okay.
Now, what we're finding is that that's a mixture of different kinds of clinicians. So we do regular spot checks, and it's usually about 70 to 75% of our membership are registered nurses, despite what they're throwing out there in mainstream media, because they're saying, oh, there's only 10 registered nurses. How anybody could work that out based on Telegram handles, I really do not know. Because, you know, to look at my name, Deborah, and then, I mean, my name's out in the general mainstream media now, but to look at a name, Caroline, and then to go onto Nursing Council and work out if that person's a registered nurse, takes a crystal ball. So they're pretty clever, these names.
Just a bit.
Mainstream media, yeah.
Yep.
So, you know, I don't know where this is going to go. What was your question?
No, that's all right. No, that's fine. I totally understand how that goes. My brain goes off on tangents totally when we're getting into conversation. No, I was just sort of, so one of the signs at the protest yesterday, was, it was very specific, and it said there are a lot more nurses that will need to leave their jobs if this continues, or something along those lines. Essentially saying that they've done what they thought they needed to do, and they've had enough now, and they're not just going to keep taking them. So do you have a feeling about where that might go? Should it continue for another 6 or 12 months, kind of thing?
Totally, because what's happening is, you know, nurses had the one vaccine, they had the 2 vaccines, possibly they've had the booster. They're coming up now to having that 4th booster. Some of them have had adverse reactions. So today we've had 4 people join us. Now that might not seem a lot, but if that happens every day,
of course,
you know, and you know, 4 new nurses. So it's happening every day. There is more and more people joining us. And these are nurses that have done what they were asked. Sure. They have had the vaccines. But there's one particular story at the moment circulating in a number of social media outlets where one of the nurses had the 2 vaccines. She was under duress to have the booster, but she did, but she's ended up with pericarditis. Right. So we're going to get more and more of these nurses that are kind of saying, I can't do it, I actually cannot, and I shouldn't have to go to ED to have to be resuscitated if something goes wrong with this vaccine.
For sure.
So we are picking up these nurses, absolutely. And then just people that are kind of questioning the narrative anyway. Look, we were told that, you know, this vaccine was going to work, it's going to be effective, but we've read this science, we've read that science, and now we're not sure. And that's one of the things about science, Lucas, is that science should be open to discussion, open to debate.
100%.
If it's not open to discussion and debate, it's not science.
I agree.
And one of the things that we've seen clearly from day one is that there hasn't been any debate. So I'm not here today to tell you whether the vaccine's right or wrong, because that's personal choice.
Absolutely.
I'm not here to go down the rabbit holes of conspiracy theories, because that's not what we're about. We're a professional organisation. But what we know as nurses, as clinicians, as doctors, is that any new drug or any new treatment or any new science that raises its head needs to be discussed. It needs to be pulled apart. It needs to be looked upon a global picture. And clearly that's not happening. So that again worries me, that we've, you know, gone down this one source of truth narrative. If there is anything to hide, then, that's how you're going to hide it, by saying we're the only source of truth. But to open something up in the scientific realm is to encourage debate, it's to encourage discussion, it's to encourage both sides of the argument, and then let people choose. We have just done completely the wrong thing in this country. Believe this and do this. That's not a way to win hearts and minds, and it's proven it's not a way to keep people safe, particularly either.
Yeah, correct. You're exactly right. When has it ever been one size fits all for any kind of medicine, or any kind of vaccine or anything, whatever it might be? That's never ever been the case. Everyone's different physiology, different size, shape, and need. And you're right, we don't really get into any kind of sort of detail around whether it is or isn't the thing to do on Kiwi Voice, but those basic questions and statements can remain. You're exactly right. It's not one size fits all. And, we've been subject to some censorship. We've been aware of it. We're aware of a lot of our colleagues in the independent media space that are suffering from that should they say anything out of line. It's been an interesting 2.5 years. And, a lot of the stuff, look, I'll just compare the situation there that you've got there. We interviewed the lawyer for the New Zealand Defence Force and Fire and Emergency, or whatever it was, Police and Defence Force, that's what it was. Police and Defence Force mandates and how he defended them and got the court to rule that the mandate was unlawful. Now, what happened subsequent to that, it's not too long a story, is that the head of the Defence Force has 4 times breached that ruling and continued to mandate the members of the Defence Force. And the lawyer's saying to them, look, just act lawfully. So the reason I tell you that story, though, is that the whole thing becomes more of an ideology. And you must adhere to this ideology, almost like a religion. And that's where I think we're potentially getting at with these pesky, nasty ones that are still remaining in terms of the mandates I reference. So interesting times. Now, I did want to touch on, if we could, Debbie, you can have a short answer to this. It's totally up to you, but have to ask. David Willis, the head of the Nurses Society, I think it's Nurses Society, and his comments, obviously it was juxtaposed in there on the project article. What are your thoughts on those comments, if you're aware of them?
I think the first thing to do is to actually identify who this gentleman is.
Yes, absolutely.
He represents the nursing union, and it's not even the biggest nursing union in New Zealand.
Gotcha.
So people, if you're not a nurse or a clinician, you wouldn't understand that nursing is managed by the Nursing Council, which is not where David was from. So he's just another player. They, on their website, they say they're the second biggest union. I can't comment on that, but it's a union.
Yes.
It's a professional union, but it is just a union. So they don't have any strategic input into nurses as such. It is just his opinion. Now, I do feel, they did ask me about this on the project, but they didn't, I don't think they played my answer, but I actually feel really sorry for David, because I think this is a time when we should be bringing together and encouraging strong working relationships between vaccinated and unvaccinated nurses. This is it's a time for building up, not tearing apart. And that's exactly what I felt that David was doing with his comments. And the amount of nurses, both vaccinated and unvaccinated, that have commented on his hurtful comments and the fact that he's not in the best interest of nursing in general has blown me away. Yes. So I'm not worried about him, because I think he's just another player in this whole big scenario. And, sometimes people, especially people that think they're in a position of influence, or perhaps would-be politicians, they always say something that kind of crazy rhetoric way out there that's going to get them some attention. Yes. Because, of course, to those kind of people, any attention's better than no attention.
Yes.
So, yes, he's going to come out and say things, but, we've written to Andrew Little and we've said, look, nursing's been broken for a long time in New Zealand. Yeah. There's lots and lots of issues. We would like to be part of the solution. So we're not just saying we'll come back to work and we'll help out a health service that's in crisis or failing, and we'll support our patients, but we want to be part of the bigger picture where we can bring some unity back and some decency in the nursing profession. And we will stand by that, because what we see as being, from people like David being targeted and his opinion being forced on us, it's a symptom of a bigger problem within nursing. And we're just happen to get the fallout because we represent something that's unusual, that's they don't like, that's a challenge, that we've stood up to them. Because I can guarantee the nursing unions are not happy that this group of nurses has risen from the ashes. They're not happy to see us doing something proactive in this space. Yeah. And they're just directing all their negativism towards us. And we can take that because we understand that it's coming from a place of hurt, it's coming from a place of chaos. So we want to help the New Zealand Nursing Council and the government work through some of this and bring our nurses back to a place where we can stand up and be the best nursing workforce in the world, where we can show the people that we really care for each other and we really care for our patients.
Yeah, absolutely. What a fantastic answer. You're very centrist and very diplomatic. I love it. That was really well put, and it was good clarification on David Willis's union, or his union, being the head of this particular union, just another union. So that's really good clarification, because you won't get that sort of perspective in a sort of 5-minute slot on primetime mainstream media. So that's really cool. Really positive. What I'd probably like to close off on, Deborah, what are the plans for Nurses for Freedom going forward? Have you got some sort of action or action plan or events coming up or awareness campaigns or anything like that?
Yeah, we are doing a massive social media campaign. So every week we putting out new things on social media, so flyers, posters, and asking people to share. We continue to get our nurses meetings. So today there was a meeting up somewhere in Northland, 20 nurses getting together just for that social support. We also have got probably another National Day of Action coming up, but we're just going to keep that under wraps for now. But that is something that we're working towards, because of course we're hopeful that the mandates will be dropped and we'll be working again.
Yes.
But if that doesn't happen, we're going to go out there, we're going to make it bigger and better each time we build on with our public support. Going forward, if the mandates were dropped, Nurses for Freedom essentially shouldn't need to exist. But I suspect that it probably will, because, not everybody heals and, is able to bring closure into their journey. So we will still be offering, we'll still be in existence. But I think what will probably happen is over time that we'll morph into something else, that will become this organisation that represents this whole bigger picture,
Yes.
pro-choice, honesty, truth, being respectful of each other's decisions. So it's a case of watch this space, really. This was started, remember, to support nurses supporting nurses, and
Yes.
it's grown wings, and, we don't know where it's going to go, but we do know that with the people that are involved, with the skills that we've got within our membership, that we potentially have the ability to make a difference in New Zealand, and we're not going to let that go. We're going to, work with that and see where we end up.
Yeah, awesome. That sounds really awesome. So I'd really love for you guys to stay in touch. And yeah, if you get any info about, say, the upcoming action or national action or anything like that, maybe flick it through to me on Messenger, and we're happy to post it up there. We've had some really serious, in terms of views and reactions and comments on any coverage that we're doing. It's like you said, it's this wider public support than is perhaps presented in the mainstream media for this particular thing. And I understand what you're saying around as an entity potentially carrying on and there being a need for that. I guess that the communities that have been formed over the last couple of years, and obviously the desire to not let this sort of, I'll say it again, nastiness happen again should we get clear eventually. So I love what you're doing. It's been awesome talking to you. We've gone through 23 minutes almost, so it's been a good yarn. Really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us. I'm literally going to hang up from you now and go and edit it and chuck it straight up on Facebook and YouTube. So
Brilliant.
It'll be up in the next hour or two. Really, really cool to talk to you. Let's stay in touch, Debbie.
Thank you. Thanks for your support.
Awesome. Talk to you again soon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Really good stuff, team. Really good to hear some clarification around that, those terrible comments from David Willis and where he actually sits in terms of the actual bigger picture. And good to hear that there's a broad remit for Nurses for Freedom and what they're going to be doing now and into the future. We'll continue to cover it. Like I say, as I said to Debbie, we'll get any info about any action that you're able to support up on Kiwi Voice, wanting to get sent to us. But for now, team, stay safe, stay free. We'll see you again real soon.